Welcome to Haunted Grove, a horrific podcast. Haunted Grove is a horror media review podcast with no set schedule, no censorship, and more pierced flesh and exposed musculature than you can shake a stick at. Your horrific hosts for today, or for this episode, are Colin, Cameron, and Adam. And today we're going to give you our spoiler-filled review of the Scarlet Gospels by Clive Barker.
Oh, man. All right,
Yay.
so this proves that we don't just review movies. We do read from time to time.
Yep.
We're actually
we know
also-
how sometimes.
yeah.
I'm in the process of rebuilding my library again, and I'm, when you hit that thing, do you rebuy everything you already had, or do we start going down a different path? And Clive Barker, sad to say, is an author I have not given enough attention to.
Oh man.
I had a
That's
few
shame.
books, but I'm severely lacking. So I'd heard about this book a while ago.
Yeah.
Just thought, let's have to pick this up and give it a go.
Well, I'm glad you did because
Yeah.
I loved revisiting this novel. Is this your first read through, Cameron?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have a bit of experience with Barker, not a whole shit ton, but yeah, this is the first time checking this one out.
There are traits that Clive Barker sort of infuses in nearly everything he does. Of course, fantasy and horror, this mixture of otherworldly experience and multidimensionality is sort of his bread and butter. But every once in a while, you run across these stories that have either characters or aspects that are played out in other short stories or novel forms, like The Book of the Art, which is Everville and the Great and Secret Show. These two books that create what's referred to as the books of, or the Book of the Art, or something like that. Harry D'Amour is featured briefly in those, even though Harry D'Amour was first introduced in The Last Illusion, volume 6 of the Books of Blood that was released, decades ago. And it's just this really great sort of noir detective who is infused with the occult. And, going back to these premises that Clive Barker frequently relies on, you get a lot of sexuality, you get a lot of occult, you get a lot of perverseness. And this particular novel has all of that infused to the nth degree. So whether or not the audience who received this, whether they received it well or not, wildly depends on how you personally feel about, perversiveness in life and your obsession with the occult and stuff like that. With the three of us, I know we all kind of appreciate that stuff.
We are sick.
It's kind of a safe bet.
Yeah, that's,
Well,
I think
the thing I
it's-
find-
that's a no-brainer. We're kind of okay with that stuff. I think we should premise that a lot of people, when they talk about movie tie-ins with books, everyone focuses on, like, Stephen King,
Right.
but nobody gives Clive Barker. Because I rewatched Lord of the Illusions there at the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And he's so underrated.
Yeah.
And his movie crossovers. There's one I watched about a month ago, The Midnight Meat Train.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Bradley Cooper.
You think of, obviously based on Cabal, but Nightbreed.
Yep.
Yep.
One of my favorites.
Those are amazing movies, but they're really
Rawhead Rex.
understated.
Yeah, Rawhead Rex.
I'm just kidding.
There you go.
That's not good. No one likes.
That's
no one-
fun.
I like it because it's goofy costume design. Like the story
Like,
itself.
that's 80s. That's house type, that's 80s horror,
For sure. Yeah. Cameron, what were you saying when we started here?
Just talking about the tie-ins. He is definitely underrated. I mean, he's very much like a King, like a Rice, where a lot of his shit ties together, and it's so nuanced that it doesn't really change the story if you know about it, but you get little things that go, I read that. Like when they're referencing Cold Hard Canyon, like that's one of my favorite fucking
great
Barker
story.
novels. I absolutely adore it. That's one I've read dozens of times. But yeah, like just little mentions of things in his novels that reference other works. I love that stuff. You don't get that a whole lot with other authors.
Yeah. one thing in particular to the Hellraiser franchise that Clive Barker was never really happy with is that he did in fact sell the IP, and he recently got it back, but the IP was taken over and they sort of just went crazy with Hellraiser. Clive Barker was involved in the first 2 films. I think he helped produce the third one, but he was never really happy with how Pinhead was named and presented. And we see this with Stephen King in The Shining, where the novella in this particular case doesn't really match where the mythology went in the film franchise. And so you either are in general, the literature fan or the film fan. And unfortunately, most people who just don't read aren't even aware that there is a difference or that there could have been a difference. And that disparity for me coming into this is a little bit frustrating, because I'm the literary fan of Barker more than I am of any of the films, even though some of the films I really do enjoy and I'm sort of obsessive about, like Lord of Illusion, like you mentioned, Colin. So my version of Pinhead begins and ends with Hellbound Heart, and I don't really like, even though I can appreciate the 80s, franchise, I don't really appreciate the on-screen version of him as much as I do the novel version of him. But then this film builds on that, tries to recorrect and sort of straighten the ship, as it were, and it's not as effective because we've lived with Pinhead for so long. This version of Pinhead is different. He does things that are inconsistent. Yeah. So I do end up, of course, want to talk about that, but do you guys want to walk through a sort of, what this story was about? Colin, do you want to take that up?
So effectively, and I always thought that Pinhead was, because he's always known as the Cenobite.
Yeah.
I actually thought he was the bishop, the pope, the high priest of the Cenobites. I thought he was the leader. I didn't realize until this book how low down the pecking order he was, which is a bit of a shock to me. So, and that's important for the premise of the story, because this is effectively, and I'm a bit annoyed that if Clive Barker didn't like the name Pinhead, why didn't he give him a name? Right. Because I'm always going to call him Pinhead, you know what I mean?
Right.
So he didn't offer an alternative here.
I mean, this is the first time he ever did, is the Hell Priest,
Yeah. So basically we've got the Hell Priest. He's looking to amass power. And the book starts off, he's hunting down human magicians, which was never even brought. Like, I thought there was a whole series of this, and I kept looking, I'm going, I can't start this, because the way I read into the book was like the whole series, but it's not. It's a direct sequel to Hellbound Heart. So where'd all this stuff about magicians come from? So apparently
his other work.
Yeah, but this is what I think somebody needs to do a proper chronological detailing of how this all ties together, and then at least you can get like a reading timeline.
Yeah,
I agree.
Like like comic book series is the way they jump from one to the other. I think that's the way this is kind of going. So I think maybe that could be a little project.
Yeah, for this channel, huge undertaking.
It would take us a minute or two.
Yeah.
So Pinhead, effectively, he's hunting down human magicians. He's amassing power, and the idea is he basically wants to challenge Lucifer himself. That's his ultimate goal.
See, that's interesting, because I know that's where it went, but I thought it was I thought he realized his limitation, and so he didn't want to have that limitation. He wanted to ascend to the most powerful position he possibly could in hell, and that he could never be an angel like the person who created hell. And so I thought he wanted to commune with Lucifer to become more enlightened until once he got there, then that happened.
It got a wee bit twisted towards, it's only disappointing, and it doesn't change my rating of the book, but the actual interaction between Pinhead and Lucifer was a bit of a letdown because of his actions. So even before he got to him, he'd already flipped the switch in his head. Yeah. And you kind of see that play out.
Yeah.
So what his original intentions were, he was always going to challenge Lucifer. That was basically, this is Pinhead's version of Lucifer's rebellion in heaven. Do you know what I mean? This is Pinhead's rebellion in hell.
Yeah.
So this is all playing out. Harry the Moor gets involved, sucked in the trap, because Pinhead's noticed him.
Yeah. Well, Harry has been
this is where we need like I said, a timeline, because there's bound to be a reference somewhere that he's become noticed by the Cenobites.
Well, you get it a lot in the short story, The Last Illusion. You get it in the Great and Secret Show and Everville, the two novels that make up the Book of the Ark.
Okay, just explain to the noob here, guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a total noob for this episode.
There's this really great like folding in of a universe that Harry, who had sinned somewhere in his past lives or something. Clive Barker's never been really specific about it, but his constant being pulled into these occult and hellscapes and attempts at correcting them is because he's sort of making reparations cosmically for things that he's done in the past that he's not even really aware of. And so he's sort of the unwilling narrator or the unwilling force that hell can't help but pay attention to, because he's always stopping them whenever they try to, break into our real world. He's that foil. And which is why Pinhead tries to stop him, because he's like, look, if anyone can stop me, it's this asshole right here who keeps stopping everyone else.
Yeah, fuck, I need to read the other books, because I didn't get that at all in this.
Yeah, that's
like, it's just
you
always
get this
kind of
thing screaming at you. You get this thing screaming at you, there's a whole other world. And I'm like wanting more, going, oh shit, right, I'm missing out stuff. And that's what I'm saying. I thought there was a whole range of Hellraiser books. I mean, I've looked into the whole situation between Barker and Dimension Films.
Yeah.
And fuck, just being young, going, money, sign that, no problem. Oh shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see this whole play out, and then we'll see Harry's characters. When he lost his partner, when he reflects back to that scene where he lost his partner and encounters the demon, like, that was brutal.
That was crazy.
Spit.
Yeah.
More.
I love that. Spit or blood, your choice.
But that's what I'm talking about. Like, scenes like that will turn 60% of everyone off of this work.
Yeah.
But those of us who really love this stuff, like, no, this is great. That is amazing. If I was a demon, I would totally do that.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome.
Everyone wants to touch their wiener in this book. Like, everyone is playing with themselves at every point. It's really ridiculous.
I mean, it's Clive Barker, man.
Yeah.
He doesn't mess about, but like I said, I watched Lord of Illusions. Holy shit, even for the time, like, that was early 90s. Holy shit, the opening of that is brutal.
Dude,
and
so good.
Darkness, and it's done, the thing is, it's done in bright light. So it's not like your classic dark, it's done bright daylight, and it's fucking horrendous.
I loved it so much.
You know what I mean? There's a style that he has, and you get it in this, and you can just tell it's tamed down for the movies, but you read the books. Even the Hellraiser series itself is so tame compared to like a Hellbound Heart.
Yeah.
When you see Charlie go through the initial before the female Cenobite, she's like, okay, right, now we're ready to begin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
And you see it in this book the whole way through, like the brutality.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as soon as we had Rogowski summoned, his spirit summoned, and the magicians are terrified because they know that the Hell Priest is coming through and constantly just trying to take their magic in order to sort of build himself up. And then he does show up because the magic they used was sort of a cue to him cosmically that, oh shit, they're gathering together. I need to go stop and take. He has one of them get impregnated and raped. I mean, he goes crazy on these magicians just to torture them, because how dare they pretend to have any power that he can't take, or even dare to try to stop him. The Hell Priest is like this all-consuming force which is why I get so frustrated with the films from time to time. He's timeless. Like the idea that it's a person that was turned into it kind of bugs me. That's why I don't really like the second
film.
film.
They did that 3 times during the franchise. They turned him back to human again.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you doing that for?
He's...
But then again, it's part of the battle, because after the third one, Clive Barker wanted his property back.
Yeah.
And it was a 6-year, you know you have a license for a franchise. If you don't make a movie in 6 years, it reverts back to the owner.
Yeah.
So that's why Dimension Films are pumping out these straight to DVD, just to try and hold on to the franchise. But then because they're doing it in the rush and not for the right intentions, they're ruined. No, I mean, you could have left Hellraiser 1 to 3, like 2. The end of it, I was a bit it was a good story up until the end, and then it got a bit stupid.
Yeah, it's got some really good aspects to it.
Oh yeah, but then they completely destroyed the franchise, just by making it more and more random. And because it didn't have the source material.
That's another one of the real glaring issues between the films and this particular novel is hell. Like, hell is dramatically different. It's much more Divine Comedy, Dante's Inferno, than it is Hellraiser 2. So because of those inconsistencies, I just sort of segment off my mind, like, okay, this is Clive Barker's novels. These are the films I can enjoy both separately, but never the two shall meet in my, in my own head canon. But I do love...
This is his thought as well. Yeah. This book's screaming at that. This is not the movies.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of reference that Pinhead became a nickname that the Cenobite absolutely hates.
Yeah.
And he's basically saying himself, I fucking hate that nickname. Why did you make it? You'd probably see like little cutesy Funko Pops of Pinheads and like screaming rage. What, you bastards? Why?
I would love to see that scene in a film where he's just like walking through like a gift shop or something, and it's just horror paraphernalia, and it's just all little Pinhead bobbleheads and shit, and he's just like seething. He's just infuriated.
Yeah. Rips his shirt open and then it goes on a rampage.
Yeah. One of the strengths of this story is that we get to know some sort of side characters that are really interesting, and they help add not just color but context to the other characters. Harry D'Amour is heavily tattooed. His tattooist Kaz, I think, he brings in Lana, when they all get together as the harrowers, as it were. But this idea that you get to understand the depths of a character through other characters is a really interesting approach, rather than having a whole bunch of backstory about just the one. You're sort of broadening out the world, as it were. And like Norma being the catalyst to everything in this, she's the one that accidentally sets the trap for Harry in the first place. Sends him into the trap.
Well, she didn't send the trap. It was the lawyer who...
Right. She was just the one that hired, asked him to go
so
look
Cenobite
picked
his vehicle well. He picked the slimy lawyer.
Yeah.
Even in death.
Yeah.
Comes up with a fake smile, fucking snake oil salesman routine. So there you go.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because there's a piece of this that I started getting a little confused on, because that moment when he's sent in, Pinhead's trying to kill him. And then he comes back later and he's like, look, now I want you to be my my bard, my scribe. I want you to be my muse to record everything that I'm going to do. What point did that happen for you guys? Because it was a weird transition for me. Like, you want him dead.
He gave the magician some of his... God, I can't remember the name of the magician, but the one he basically had along with him, and he had him as a symbol.
Felixson. That one?
Yeah.
Felix, yep. So he gave him some of his cognitive ability back.
Yeah.
And he was kind of disappointed, even with... He realized this wasn't... I think he had him as the Oracle. What's it, the Oracle?
Well, trying to be just...
What was the term? He used the specific term. He was using DC Comics as well for Infinite Crisis.
I'm not familiar.
Oh, shit.
It might have been Oracle. I'm already on to like another book, so there's bits that are kind of missing.
You will witness. You will be my witness. I think that was it.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, witness, yeah.
Yeah, you will be my witness. He was going to have Felix as a witness first, but he was disappointed in him. And then the fact that D'Amour escaped the trap. So the fact that he was able to escape it and proved his tenacity.
Yeah.
I think that's what brought it. He now understood why he was a worthy opponent.
Yeah,
so
and there's also
who better.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of irony in it too, because he wanted him dead because he foils all of Hell's plans, and then he's going to have the guy who foils all of Hell's plans be the witness to the fall of Hell, or the rise of Hell's pinnacle through the Hell Priest himself. Like I love that bit of irony.
Was it after he's expelled from the order? Because he wasn't happy with it. He understood hell himself has become this decadent, lazy, just slovenly existence.
Yeah.
Was it after he's expelled from the order? Which
yeah,
the Hell Priest,
yeah, because it was he got expelled and then he starts doing all his shit, and that's when everybody goes into hell to go fuck him up.
Yeah. Yeah, and even then it wasn't even
because
they were just chasing Norma.
It was after the expulsion. That's when he went and got Norma, and that's when they all chased him in.
And that's when he said, "You'll be my witness."
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was after that moment he just became completely. So Demore was foiling Hell's plans, and he came to that realization of, well, yous are a bunch of shitheads. Yous aren't worth. Yous aren't worth me aspiring to.
Yeah.
Here's the man. Here's the perfect man who understands hell. Who's going to chronicle my rise, my ascension.
Yeah. What did you guys think of hell? Like the way that it was presented?
I fucking loved it.
It was very similar to The Black Tattoo, if you've read that book.
I haven't.
Brilliant book. Sort of young adult. I should have wrote down the name of the author. Sorry, guys.
Hold on, write this down.
Black Tattoo. It actually shows hell. It's the only book I've ever read apart from this that actually shows hell as a landscape that has a hierarchy, has different levels to it.
Right.
And actually gives it a bit of body, because I'm bored with eternal fire, blah, 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 and people just waiting in stasis to come into the real world. It actually establishes it as its own kingdom.
I like that.
So the fact that he's done here, and depending on your sins or how you end up in hell, depends on your level. So you've got the gutter rats, but then you've got the ones even in hell ascend up the different levels.
Yeah,
but it's very similar to Rome.
Yeah, I mean that's the traditional Catholicism view of hell. Your levels of depravity, or sin, that Dante really sort of illustrated beautifully in the Divine Comedy. What I really appreciate about this is that you not only have that aspect, but you also have the organizational, the structural side of it with the demons and their their different echelons and ostensibly split organizations inside of it. The Hell Priest is part of one fraternal organization, and there's others that have sort of come in to fill the gap that Lucifer left in his absence, and being presented with an idea that hell without Lucifer is interesting too for me. I'm sort of just always obsessed with the idea of hell and sin and Satan and Lucifer, and that the fall from grace, as it were. I've always loved that mythology. And to have this where, ironically, it's a lot like the very beginning of The Force Awakens, where it's like Luke Skywalker is gone, Lucifer is gone. Like, where the hell did he go? Of course, it ends a lot better in this than it did in Force Awakens.
Little bit better.
So, okay. Do you have a favorite character that we're sort of following through? They call themselves the Harrowers after they enter into hell chasing the Hell Priest and Nora. But again, they sort of help inform each other in very different ways. You got Dale, this Southern gentleman who is really, he's homosexual. He sort of likes to flirt with Harry a lot, but then him and Kaz kind of start making this really interesting connection. Lana is the one that I can't really wrap my hands around because we didn't really learn a lot about her, other than she's supposedly a badass, like this fighter type. Do you have a favorite character in that group? What do you think, Cameron?
Mine definitely would be Lorna. I want to know more about her.
Yeah.
Because she's ultimately like a mixture of Harry and Kaz, but she's like a tiny fucking thing. Like, I want to see an offshoot story of her.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Fun as hell.
I like Dale because he kind of held the group together. He was almost the moral compass, because even he centered Harry when Harry started getting. Harry's like on the verge of just giving up and a depressive state because he's been ground down with this conflict over his lifetime and potential many lifetimes. That's weighing on his shoulders. So every so often he gets to the point of, I'm ready to give up, and it's Dale is the one that centers him and brings him back.
Yeah,
and he kind of acts as that scene with, who was that other character who betrayed him? Oh shit!
Who betrayed Harry?
Yeah. They give him the potion.
I mean,
the trans character, the
right.
who Dale keeps calling you're a bitch, you're a dick, you're that. You know what I mean? Just
God, that shit was
Dale's
so funny.
Dale's one-liners.
Yeah.
Oh God, I forget the name of it. God,
I
should have.
We all did.
It's because it's been over a week since I read this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like Cameron, I'm already on to another book, so I try to refresh everything. But I mean, this book is meant to be this epic journey, really presenting hell for the first time in the context of the Hell Priest. So you get to see everything as him as your guide. You know, he's sort of clearing the way for the harrowers to come in and witness everything he's done, and using Nora as that sort of carrot on a stick. But this was meant to be a 1,000 to 2,000 page epic. You know, I mean, this was supposed to be a huge volume, and it got truncated down to what it is now. You know, there's interviews where Clive Barker's talking about how they were actually going to be traveling back to see the birth of Christ, and Harry D'Amour was going to have a conversation with Jesus about sacrifice and about sin. Like, this was supposed to be this massive Christian mythology epic.
That would have, like, just a quick sidebar, because of what I'm reading right now, that would have fucked me up horribly.
Oh, really?
So I'm reading Memnoch the Devil.
Oh, yes.
I'm going through the Anne Rice Vampire Chronicles.
Yeah.
And there was already so much crossover between the two that I kept getting them confused from time to time. If they would have done that shit, I would have been like, I don't know which one I'm reading at this point.
I love that book. That's a good one.
That's fucking good.
You just give me a story about the devil. I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that scene, is that the one where he steps on the eyeball and it squishes between his toes?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that is...
multiple times.
Yeah. Oh, man. I love that book. Okay, so back to this.
Yeah.
I mean, Clive Barker is one of those writers who he works on stuff for decades and just sort of ruminates on it and thinks about it, and then he'll sometimes just hang it up and never return to it, or he'll end up going back to it years later and trying to refine it. This is one of those stories where he was working on it for so long he didn't really know where it should go. He knew he wanted Pinhead or the Hell Priest to do what he did, but he didn't really know how to get there. He knew he wanted to tell this epic hell narrative, but he didn't really know how to like nail it home. And so what was meant to be this really incredible Divine Comedy experience ended up sort of falling flat. For me, I didn't really believe that there would be so few hangups for the harrowers traveling through hell. Mm-hmm. For me, I don't care if the Hell Priest went through there and scattered armies and, destroyed a bunch of people. You're in hell. There must be some other obstacles that these people have to face, some new terrors that are just fresh because it's hell, Instead, it makes me think of like a weird sort of English countryside that they're just sort of walking in the wake of a battle. And so they're just seeing the remnants of the battle, but there's no personal consequences involved.
I can forgive it because this book came out in 2015, I think.
Yeah.
And he only got the rights back in 2020. So he was still going through this with Dimension Films. Mm-hmm. And that's got to mess with you.
Yeah.
When he's watching his idea get completely bastardized.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? Revelations was like the last one. It was fucking awful.
You watched it?
Yeah, I've seen part of it.
Yeah, I had to.
He
just can't, what I mean? Fucking big square head. And the whole thing with the angels at the end. And, oh, God, man. Yeah.
Well, it gets rough.
But if you're watching your work, something like that being done to your work, that's going to tie it up. So this book is a fuck you, basically. You know what I mean? That was his way of going, I'm not happy with what you're doing. Yeah. And that whole thing screams to me. And then knowing the kind of backstory and what was going on, I kind of see it get told out in this book, which gives me a lot of sympathy for it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it definitely felt like a writing of the ship. for his universe. I wish we would have gotten the extended cut. I want the 2,000 page version of this because I just want to live here for a while. I love his version of New York.
It could still happen.
I hope. It's been a long time.
He could revise it. When everything cools down, now he's got everything back. Get a clear head. He could revise this novel.
Well, they're already making
why not?
I think it's a Netflix remake of.
No, is it not Hulu?
Oh, is it Hulu? Okay. I knew they were making it from one of the streaming. Yeah.
Hulu seems to be a little bit stronger with that shit.
Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about the Lucifer part, because ultimately, we've always seen Lucifer as a sort of a relatable figure of sorts.
Still relatable.
Yeah.
Yes.
What did you think about the approach? Once the Hell Priest and everyone gets to that sort of island palace that ends up, being a tomb. What did you think about his take on Lucifer?
That was fucking awesome and made so much sense as to why he was a figure that, he's the ruler of hell and nobody sees him, nobody hears from him or anything. And it makes sense. Again, kind of tying back to the other book I'm reading, like that's something that stressed so hard is the pure sorrow and agony that Lucifer feels by being out of God's presence. Mm-hmm. But also having the problem of you can almost get there, but not quite. So of course, fuck it. I want to die. I want to get the fuck out of here. And, going through all the rituals and just seeing how he basically committed suicide without actually committing suicide. Yeah. That was fucking sweet.
Yeah, it was just like this. Yeah. The best he could do is put himself in a stasis. And like that's torture in and of itself. But then to have some asshole wake you up.
Yeah.
What did you think about that, Colin?
Yeah, because in the end, Christian mythology, this is a family dispute. Mm-hmm. People forget that. People, good, when fucking loony Christians get in your face, blah, blah, blah. But it's effectively a family dispute. There's a TV show, it was originally created by Fox. Lucifer did this wonderfully.
Oh, yeah.
The whole family dynamic between Lucifer and God. Don't know if you've watched it.
I haven't.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. It's actually a really good. It's done as a comedy. Mm-hmm. Doesn't take itself too seriously, but there's a lot of deep moments, and it's actually a really good series.
Oh, nice.
It actually ruined when they remade Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, and then I was watching Lucifer, and then they showed that version of the devil. I was like, "What the fuck's this?" This guy came out absolutely no charisma, no soul. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But this telling of Lucifer is basically broken, remorseful, because he basically went against his dad. It's not even like God Almighty. He went against his father, his family. He's been cut off from his family. After millennia, he's depressed. And he can't commit suicide because he's an eternal. So the fact that, and plus, this was his greatest work. He built this cathedral with his abilities. I think it took a millennia and his abilities. So this was his greatest work. To be his tomb.
Yeah.
And that's what he crafted his energy into. So he could basically rest in oblivion, like the whole Roman Catholic thing, purgatory. It's that's what he basically wanted to be in his own purgatory, just switch off. So yeah, I'd get it if I was like that and somebody woke me up, I'd be a bit grumpy too.
Yeah.
But it was just funny the way they portrayed him, tried to make it as if he was weak and Pinhead had a chance.
Yeah.
That was the funny bit.
Well, that's what I loved about it, is because Pinhead really thought he had a chance.
Oh yeah. Well, fuck, for a minute there, you thought.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, he killed Lucifer.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He just slightly annoyed him. He's like, right, fuck you. If that's the game you're going to play, guess what?
Lucifer's like, I can't. He took me out of my slumber. I can't die. I can't go back. I'm not going to let this guy become the new prince of hell. He's like, fuck this guy. At first he was just sort of being batted around. He's like, I don't really care anymore. How dare you? I just an aside, I loved how the Hell Priest was cutting parts of him off in order to fit in Lucifer's armor.
That was fucking awesome.
I thought it was so great. It got to a point though, like when Lucifer was like disemboweling him, and I was like, well, what is left of this hell priest? Like, he's been ripped apart. Like, he's got like a leg. He's just hopping around. Like, he's so tore to pieces, and he cut himself into pieces before that. Like, what is actually left of him at the end, you know?
Barker describes it beautifully, that there isn't anything left, you know. From the centuries, millennia of torture and self-mutilation that they've already went through as a Cenobite. Because do you remember the scene where they have the people like on spikes outside the Cenobite temple? Because they're initiates. So they're going through the initial... they're not even... Because even if you think back to Hellbound Heart, Charlie wasn't even getting initiated as a hell priest. He was just open to lament configuration, and he got sucked in. So... he wasn't even at that stage. So that was only the first level of suffering. So there's the tortured souls, and God, what you call her out of Hellbound Heart? Get back in the second one.
Kirsty? Who? What?
Kirsty is the one with the.
Are you talking about the Cenobite?
No, the human.
Well, the girl was Kirsty, the daughter.
Kirsty, right? So even Kirsty, you know, coming back from hell, she wasn't even like, they're just the playthings.
Yeah.
That's why they're like, I never want to go back there. They're just the playthings. But the people on the spikes outside the temple are actually taking themselves to the next level of suffering.
Yeah.
And Pinhead is an established hell priest, well known and infamous. So he's taken himself several levels above that again.
Yeah.
And even that's not enough. He has to mutilate himself further just to wear this armor. And even then, it's because Lucifer's like just woken up going, somebody's trying to hack him to pieces. He's like, here, hang on a minute, you know. And then he wakes up, well, you bastard. You know, and that was it.
Yeah. What did you guys think about the conclusion of it? Because this is the only inconsistent part for me, was that why would the Hell Priest rape Nora to death personally? I could see him maybe having someone else do it, but for him to do it, that felt so out of character for me. What did you guys think?
Yeah, well, especially when he still has, because at that point he still had what's his bucket, the
Felix,
split head dude, right? Or was this after?
I think this is at the end. This is like after he lost to Lucifer, and it's just sort of like a last fuck you to Harry and Nora. Like I don't even realize why he did it. Like in my head, I'm making that up. Like it's a last fuck you. It didn't explain why he did it. It's just that he did it. It's like, what?
Yeah, Pinhead being physical, and this is partly the movie's fault as well. He's supposed to be above that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The chains.
Well, beyond that, you know, I mean, that's his whole character is beyond pleasure and pain. I don't know. It was weird.
It was a bit petty.
It was straight up petty. It was just like, why? You were so much better than that. Even if you were defeated by Lucifer, it took Lucifer. You know? Yeah. Like, you beat everyone else. You are number 2 in hell. That's not good enough. You just have to, like, sort of stomp your feet and hold your breath? Like, who the fuck are you?
Right.
I don't know.
But once again, this is Barker.
Yeah.
This is Barker showing his disgust for the movie franchise. And that's why I gave the book a rating. I understand where this is coming from.
Yeah.
Because he had not stopped fighting. Like, you're talking about 6 movies worth of fighting to try and get his franchise back. And, you know, like I said, he didn't even get it back until 2020, so this book was already out. So this is his protest. So he wanted to destroy the character of Pinhead.
Oh, he certainly did.
Yeah.
He actually wanted to tear down the character because he's pissed off what the movie franchise did to it. So I can actually get this from the book.
Yeah.
So you can actually see that this is the author's voice screaming at you, going, "Fucking get this!" So I'm going to do this to him.
Oh yeah. Well, even down to like his description of Pinhead in the beginning, like it's just like, "Fuck this guy. He's a fucking turd. I don't like him anymore."
When Lucifer starts pulling out the nails, going, "Is this what you thought was cool?" You know, and pushing them back in and pulling it out and pushing it back in and going, "Really? This is what you think's scary?"
God. Lucifer's the best. So what did you think about the end with Lucifer? Because ultimately he collapses hell that he created, and he goes and tries life. He's like, I want to see what it's like on the outside. What did you guys think about that?
I thought it was
can
brilliant.
appreciate it.
I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But there's no more
He's
hell.
just doing what his dad did. That's all it is.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck it. He seemed to like it for 33 years. Why not? I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of
That
bugged
doesn't mean
me.
there can't be another hell.
Right.
I mean, he destroyed that hell.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the sadness for me, or at least I experienced the sadness of not only the loss of the Hell Priest, but also the loss of hell. I was just like, oh, but I like them. I want them to still be.
But this is, once again, this is the whole drama.
Yeah. No, I get
This is
it.
Clive Barker's screaming protest.
Yeah, I get
I mean,
it.
that's
It's
what this book
like
is,
ending
and
the
I get it.
franchise. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can talk about what our favorite parts of this are. So let's start with you, Colin. What's your favorite part of this novel?
As I mentioned before, when he was talking about the death of his partner and the demon
Mhm.
he encounters, when they're going to do his thing, and the scummy is with the prostitute, and he sees the goat tied to a thing, but it's through his vision, and he's trying to tell him, don't look. And then because if you're in proximity of Harry, then you see too. And then that just kicks that whole series of events off. I'm like, oh shit. Tony has done what you're told.
And it was just like a side comment, like, hey, don't do that. What are you doing? And they're like, you don't realize you just said that to a demon. Like, just ignore it. Just look the other way. Move on, man.
This is not your realm. This is outside your jurisdiction.
So great. Ugh.
Yeah, definitely. Just that whole scene, and the fact that he just remembered it and is like, I wanna delve into Harry D'Amour now. You know, that's
He's great.
I wanna read his tales and where it all goes. I just hope it's a consistent story.
Well, it's not like an A to B narrative with Harry. Harry comes in and goes through stuff.
All right, no.
Yeah. The closest you're going to get is the last illusion, and that's it. And that's all him. I mean, Everville, he is heavy in Everville. So, you know, you're going to get a lot of him if you read those. But, you know.
Yeah, I think Books of Blood's next on the list, and
you should definitely. It's great.
Just work through them.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. But even Books of Blood, you know, it's not a narrative. It's a collection of different stories, you know. So
I just want to see that universe.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? That's what this book's got me. I want to see, because it is a crossover.
Yeah.
I want to see the other universe. It's got me intrigued.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, because I think it should. I don't think enough people know about Harry D'Amour as a character. He's like one of my most favorite horror film or horror characters, because he's the everyman. He's us. You know, we're obsessed with the occult. We have tons of, in some cases, we have tons of tattoo, a little bit of body modification, you know, in some of us, a little more on others. But like
a little less in some.
Yeah.
It's like,
but I mean, this is, we live that world, you know, I mean, of course in our own world, but I don't know. He's one of us. Google gobble, you know. I mean,
straight up.
I love him.
We're just one tome away, getting dragged in and seeing everything.
When I find that book that explains the tattoos, I'm fucking covering myself.
Shit, yeah, dude. Shit, yeah. So, what was your favorite part, Cameron?
So it's hard. It's a toss up. Obviously, the one that Colin just said, like that's the one that's constantly going through my head. Anytime I think of this book, it's going to be that, and the when the demon's beating off. Like, I love that. It's so fucking good. So it's between that and towards the end, when the big ass monster that everybody's scared of that's in the lake.
Oh yes.
When they're like, don't fuck with it, whatever, blah blah blah. Like when that finally comes out and starts eating motherfuckers. Oh man, that was just like, that was what I was hoping for, something like that in hell. Because of course there's always got to be something big.
Leviathan.
Yeah.
And that was
Leviathan.
Badass.
I love the way they described it too. Like I still don't have a crystal picture, but you're not really supposed to. It's like this tentacled or not tentacled, but like almost like a millipede or something, but like a gargantuan scale that is almost endless. And to think that hell has a creature that the denizens of hell are afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like
and that's another thing that I loved about this is the shit you don't really consider when you consider hell and stuff like that. Like, there's different religions down there.
yeah.
There's different sects, and that was just such a beautiful experience that, of course, that would make sense. It's been there since the dawn of fucking time.
Yeah.
Well, predates time, really. Obviously, there's going to be different branches, different beliefs, different practices. Yeah, just, God, it was so beautiful.
Dude, I loved it.
Go ahead. Give a flavor. Hell had actual flavor to it.
Yeah.
Yes, the whole thing of actually walking through a landscape and just gnarly trees and stuff was, a bit flat. But if it had just been a volcano with fire and people going, right. Like Spawn, that would have bored. You know what I mean? We've seen that 100 times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But giving it that bit of depth, just makes me want to know more and how it developed and what the inter struggles were before this book. Like, this should have been a series on its own, but I think because of the whole movie thing, why would you put your energy if somebody's like bastardizing it on the screen and everybody sees it as that thing? How are you going to even be motivated to write a book and say, no, actually that's not what I meant? When you signed that bit of paper, what age was he? Like 21, 22? Hellbound Heart came out.
Yeah, he was a kid.
Yeah.
He's only young. He's like really young, and he got flashy lights, and he signed that bit of paper. And it's like, oh shit, the reality of what these studios do.
Yeah.
Hit him.
I mean, he did great with Hellraiser. The very first movie that he actually helped, get out there. It was pretty much his vision, and so he had a good experience. But then, of course, they want to keep pushing out new content, and so he's like, okay, well, how can we sort of continue that story? So they made Hellraiser 2, and then he was just like, I don't really want to do this anymore. He's putting out other books that are like epic in scope, like a Magica, where, and he doesn't want to do this anymore. He wants to do other stuff. But everyone else just after that one quote from Stephen King about Clive Barker's the new face of horror, everyone wants to ride that money train and make just tons of films. And he's just like, I don't really want to do that. And then we didn't get anything from him for a very long time, and all he did was artwork. And then he came out with the Aberrat trilogy, which is great if you haven't read that. And he illustrated the whole thing himself, and we got this other side of Clive Barker rather than just the storyteller, the visual artist, which is equally great. And like his sketches of Pinhead are amazing. I love them. They're so good. And his artwork is great. So
yeah, it's fucking fantastic.
Yeah. My favorite
that's the problem when you get involved with these studios.
Yeah. But what can you do? Like, they own it. They own the rights for a period of time. You just have to wait and bite your thumb.
Yep. And then as soon as you get the rights back, you hire Mick Garris and he does a TV special.
I really hope that's going to be good.
I hope so too. My favorite part of this is I like when Clive Barker's universe leaks into ours. So that's why I like Harry D'Amour so much, is because when we get this image of these terrified magicians who, for regular humans, are immensely powerful, and they've tapped into this ancient tradition of wisdom that no one knows about, and they're summoning this ghost. I love the idea that there is this aspect to reality that no one is really aware of. And so we open with that. It just sort of leaks into our world. And then we hear the tolling of the bells, and everyone knows what that means. And you're just like, fuck, there's something so much deeper and darker that, it adds gravity to Pinhead after having become this sort of bobblehead character. These witty one-liners, just sort of coming off and, making comedic jabs. Now this brings him back to, no. The Hell Priest is terrifying. He terrifies the most powerful humans on the planet, and he just toys with them. He fucks with them because he can, because he's eternal, because he's fucking the Hell Priest, I love that so much. It was the best introduction to what this story was going to, move into, that I think I could have ever expected. I loved it. It was great. What about least favorite parts? Colin, let's start with you.
When he's expelled from the Cenobite order, when he's brought into the temple, I was so disappointed by first of all, I always saw Pinhead as the epitome. I thought he was the lead hell priest.
Right.
They found out that he wasn't, and he was actually, although infamous, was really low down in the pecking order. And then when you hear these other Cenobites, they're so stiff, and you have been exploring forbidden things. It's like, no, you're meant to. Nothing's meant to be forbidden in your order. So where's this shit come from?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just that whole scene playing out and the politics of hell. But who was it? Oh shit, I forget. But you know what I mean? It just kind of took me out a bit. I'm like, I don't want to see too much of this. That's boring. You know what I mean? It's really boring.
Yeah.
But that whole scene where he's brought in and like chastised and thrown out, and I suppose it makes the revenge more satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
That he wasn't going to stop his plans anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of factored this in. But that organization just really took me out of it. If we'd ever seen that before, like in the movies, you'd just be like, nah.
Yeah, I think you're right. What about you, Cameron?
Well, I don't have like a specific scene or anything that I didn't like particularly care for. Really, my biggest problem was the fact that the whole hellscape part, like that, just felt so rushed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get it. He's trying to pump shit out, but like that could have been so much longer.
Yeah.
And it would have been so much better. It felt so rushed. And it's sort of like, you get a good movie, the original pass is like 4 hours. And of course they're like, oh, well, we can't do 4 hours. We got to do an hour and a half. And then somebody comes in, doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, edits it, and gets rid of all the fucking story. That's kind of what it felt like to me. Like I still enjoyed it, but I could have lived in that so much longer.
Yeah, the strength of hell has always been the personal connection. In Hellraiser 2, when Frank is tormented by these slabs of meat, as it were, of women that come out, but he can't actually touch any of them. They just tempt him. The idea that hell is there to torture the people. I've always liked versions of hell where it is a personal experience. So, Pinhead is going through hell in a very similar way in the Apocrypha. Jesus walks through hell. He's sort of witnessing the madness and the structure of this unstructured landscape. Like when Dante was going through hell, being led by Virgil, they're explaining why these different levels existed, who controlled them, and who went to them. It made it personal, and so it made it much more believable and drew you in as a reader. This version of walking through hell, there was nothing personal about it. They were chasing someone that was just ahead of them. So the time you're in hell, they're not experiencing it. If they would have had these scenes where Harry ran across previous people that he knew in life that are being tortured or tormented, well, then now there's a great connection, because you're seeing, or maybe the demons that he had sent back, there's a taste of that in this, but it didn't really do it.
Well, and the crazy thing is that's even set up prior to them going in. Was it almost set it up like, hey, you're probably gonna run into some motherfuckers, because they talk about how many demons he sent back, and then you get there and it's like they're in there, but because they're not dead, they're not actually in there. That's kind of how I took it. I don't know
so
how much sense that makes.
That was my least favorite portion of it as well. Even though I'm a big fan of hell.
Yeah,
it's so weird to say.
Remedy Feist actually did a good job of that when they went into Liz Crava's realm, because Pug would have seen somebody they'd encountered before, and he couldn't. They're waiting in queue basically to be judged by her. That's the way his setting of the underworld was. And he'd encounter somebody, and then he would falter because he'd want to go into the thing. But if he joined the queue, then you become part of the queue, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or the line, you say, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If he got into the line with the people, then you're trapped, and then that's the only path for you. Greek mythology does it as well. God, what was it? Shit. Goes down to Hades' underworld to rescue his wife. I was told not to turn back.
Right. I don't know the individual gods and heroes' names.
Yeah.
But I do know the story.
Greek mythology is friggin' 3 books about Dawn size, so it's actually a whole economic study in itself. But that story where basically the only way laid out, but not looking back if you falter. So yeah, if there had been a bit of that, I would have just taken it to the next level. But I understand why he didn't, because this book is a protest book. I think we'll have to keep that in their minds.
I think the original edits of it were that. I mean, just the fact of talking, traveling through dimensional space and time in order to see the nativity, and then, moving forward to talk about, have Harry talk to a Jesus character. Like, there was that originally. So he did definitely cut that stuff out. So I don't know. That's why I think it's the least attractive part of the story.
Published this.
They really needed
Pan Macmillan. They're normally all right. Is it a publisher, aren't they?
I think he edited it out. I don't think someone else did. I think he was. I actually don't. This is conjecture. I have no idea. But he was going through so many health issues, and I think he still is. Some like serious, life and death health issues that someone on his staff. There's a rumor out there that he didn't even put this final version together. Someone else did. And we just don't know, because he's never commented on it that I'm aware of. And all we know is what he said when he was writing it was going to be in it, and then what we got, and it wasn't in it. So we know he meant it to be much bigger. It didn't end up being bigger. He was going through a bunch of health issues at the time. Something happened. So
yeah. Well, no, you can definitely see that with this book.
Yeah.
The real world has impacted on the storytelling. That's why I keep referring to it.
Yeah.
You can't read this book and not understand that stuff was going on. You know what I mean? And that's what gives me an appreciation for it. The fact that it came out at all.
Yeah.
And it was still a compelling story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about let's talk about our ratings. Cameron, what'd you give this?
So I'll give it a good 4. It was great. I liked it. Definitely not my favorite Clive Barker. I feel like, of course, I'm a little biased because I don't have the full breadth of the Hell Priest saga as it was. So I'm sure it might change as I read other books, but that's where I keep it for now.
Yeah. What about you, Colin?
I give it a 5. Like I said, I understand all that was going on. The fact this book still came out was still a riveting story, and it makes me want to learn more and delve into the world. It's not like you just pick this up, forget about it, and set it down. I want to actually start collecting the series and build up the backstory.
Yeah.
I'd like to think now that he's got the rights back, that this is going to get revised again. I've just a funny feeling it is.
I hope.
I don't think this is the end.
Yeah, I keep hoping that this is his version of The Stand.
Yeah.
Comes out this big, and then he's like, fuck it, I got it back. And then it's a fucking bigger than dictionary.
Yeah. It depends how this TV show goes as well. If he uses the TV show to start expanding on the universe, I see that being revised again and coming back out. Maybe as a 2-parter. So I'm not writing it off. Do you know what I mean? It's I can see why it got truncated. I can understand the real world stuff coming on. So the fact that fair play to go through all that shit and still pump out this book, I mean, kudos.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I was really excited when I heard that there was actually an unfinished short story that he started about a bridge story, because he always knew he wanted to have the Hell Priest have a witness and his rise to power in hell, but he didn't know how to get there. And so the original story was a continuation with Kirsty, and he ended up just sort of putting it away because he could never really wrap his head around it. Years later, in 2018, Mark Allen Miller went back to that, collaborated with Clive Barker in order to sort of create a bridge between the Hellbound Heart and the Scarlet Gospels, and it's called Hellraiser: The Toll. I haven't read it yet. I just bought it once I found out about it. It's only like 70 pages, but it's supposed to be that bridge where Kirsty is supposed to be the first witness, and somehow that gets foiled or something. So I'm excited to read that. And I'm really glad that there is this sort of connective tissue that exists that was informed by Clive Barker, even if he didn't do the entirety of the story himself. But that's another part where, is Mark Miller the one that sort of pushed him to return to this story, and then it's his final stamp and not Clive Barker's final stamp? Like, we just don't know. This leads me to believe that maybe there are other forces at work that were sort of pushing him to finish this and to get it where it is, rather than letting him get to it in his own time or something. But oh well.
We don't want another George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
Imagine being one of his fans. I mean, it must be a bit shit for you.
Yeah. Well, I actually do really like his work. And I'm infuriated that he hasn't finished the goddamn Song of Ice and Fire yet.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
It must be shit to be a George fan because he's a cunt.
Yeah. Just straight up.
So I think they're like, no, Clive, let's get this done. Come on. You can look at it later, but come on, get it out there.
Yeah. I gave it a 4 knives in the back. That's a good thing. It wasn't 100% for me. There's so much in this novel that I absolutely desperately loved. So many characters coming together that I loved, and the imagery that he paints through his writing, I just think is just so wonderful. I love his perversity, his just monstrosity, the abominations of actions that he has, the Hell Priest and others commit on each other. And I just love it so much. And so I couldn't give it any less than that. And I wanted to give it 5, but the landscape of hell, I want it to be a little more personal, a little more consequential for the people going into it. I mean, they're not this sort of son of God walking through in protection. They're just fucking mortals, that's it. So it should have been rougher on them, I thought. But oh well. Anything else you guys wanted to talk about with this?
Think we got it.
I think we pretty much covered it. It was like I said, it was enjoyable. Be interesting to see. I think I'll look up the toll, get that.
Yeah, it's like $2 or $7 or, I mean, it's like really cheap.
Yeah, I'll pick that up.
Yeah, that's definitely being added to the queue.
Yeah.
Love to see this expanded, this universe.
Yeah.
Now that he's got the rights back, I want to see the universe done properly.
Well, you should read the books of the art, because the art is magic, and that's that's him fleshing everything out that happens in this book. It's already like fleshed out in that as a universe. And so that's like, I think that should be, they're big reads, but they're worth it. They're really good. So
Excellent.
The Great and Secret Show and Everville, definitely read those if you want more. All right. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Haunted Grove, a horrific podcast. Of course, if you want to know about what is coming up next, the only way to do it is to toll the bell. Ring that motherfucker. And of course, you want to subscribe to the channel, because why wouldn't you? Show some class.
Right, you're already fucking watching us.
Yeah. And let us know what you thought about Clive Barker's work in general, the Scarlet Gospels specifically, or just Pinhead. Do you think he should be gone? Do you want him back? Do you want them to keep making those films that they made so many of? Did you enjoy them? Let us know in the comments below. Have a great day, everyone.
Don't forget, if you want to survive between now and next episode, if you come across the lament configuration, leave it alone.
Walk away.
Don't play with it.
Just try to ignore it. It might still come get you.
Well, that's the thing about it, though. It just opens itself sometimes.
How the movie or the bookings.